All right, good evening and welcome to this third edition of the virtual Seeds of Gold Farm Clinics. Remember where we started from in Mukono, where we looked at coffee and fish. We moved over to Kawanda, where we looked at bananas and organic vegetables. Well, today we are here for our final one at Namlonge, and we shall be looking at very interesting enterprises. And like we've been doing for the past virtual farm clinics, please send in those questions about today's enterprises. So today we have maize and dairy. So if you have any question about maize, you have a question about dairy, please don't hesitate to send that question, because we have the experts with us today here and they will be taking us through all that and more. Well, to start with me, I have a very interesting gentleman with me. He's from here, the institute where we had the National Crop Research Institute here in Namlonge, and he will be telling us a bit about what to expect, what does the institute deal in. Briefly, then we shall head into the training. Let me just he will tell us his name and yes, you can continue.
Dear viewers, my name is Dr. Jimmy Lamont. I'm the program leader for cereals research at the National Crops Resources Research Institute, Namlonge. But here I'm standing in for the director of the institute to welcome you today to this important event of the Seeds of Gold Farm Clinic. And we are going to give you more information on maize. But before that, I take the opportunity to explain to you the broader aspect of the National Crops Resources Research Institute, which is one of the institutes under NARO, the National Agricultural Research Organization. Here we have programs. Today we are at the cereals program, which takes research in maize and rice. The other one is root crops, which takes research in yams, cassava, and sweet potatoes. Another one is legumes program, which focuses on soybean as well as beans. Then the fourth program is horticulture program, which takes care of all horticultural crops, including the oil crops. In addition to that, we have a biosciences lab, which undertakes basic and applied research together in biotechnology, and also an analytical lab, which helps us to roll out our products to the best use and for safety and quality. Now, I take this opportunity to appreciate greatly the sponsors of this program. First is the Monitor Publications Limited, NTV, which is with us here, viewers, the KFM, which is here, the National Social Security Fund, and the Stanbic Bank. What you will expect from here is a range of technologies that help us to take maize as a commodity, as an income-generating crop to the rural poor, as a trade commodity to those who are involved in value addition, and to those who are involved in availability of inputs. That is to make sure that the best yield are gained from the crop, and to the final value addition different products of maize. I expect viewers to be interactive in this virtual ICT platform, to come up with comments on the narrow platforms, so that at the end of this, we make responses, we interact, and you benefit in a way that can be wider. And I welcome each and everyone who is right now in the different locations using the benefit of virtual ICT to feel free and gain from this important opportunity. You're most welcome.
Okay, thank you, Director, for those kind words. Like you heard, maize is really a very, very important crop. If you've gone through the Ugandan education system, you realize that actually maize is one of those things that is part of our daily meal. So it is very, very much a part of our life, and we need to work hard to see that we have more of this wonderful crop. Well, I'll just walk over to the gentleman who is going to take us through where we start from, the gardening. How do we plant the maize? How do we space it? So with me I have Mr. Jonah Semogerere, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, Mr. Jonah Semogerere. Good evening.
Good evening to you, sir.
Where are we starting from?
Now, I'm Jonas Semoge, and I'll be working with George, Derek, and Tony, and like we'll be able to show you how we can be able to come up with a maize plant. First of all, like before we even think about planting maize, first of all, like we must come up with a land preparation. Land preparation should be done very well. And now, like what you see here, now because like if you do your land prep very well, it means you'll be having a good crop coming up. And like the second thing, it has to be the choice of seed. The choice of seed, like you want to plant, because like when it comes to Uganda, we've got different altitudes. We have mid and low altitude, plus also high altitude areas. So basically, you need to choose a seed like which will be able to be planted in those different altitudes. So basically, we do have different varieties of maize. We do have the OPVs, which are the open pollinated varieties, plus the hybrids. Like for the hybrids, you plant once and you buy seed. And for the OPVs, you can be able to plant and you keep on recycling for 3 seasons. Because like for them, you can be able to recycle them for 3 seasons. But for the hybrids, you plant your seed, next season, you have to buy new seed. It's not because like we want the farmer to suffer, but it's just the biology, like the biology of maize. Now, like if you have ever planted white maize and your neighbor plants yellow maize, by the time you harvest your white maize, it will be having yellow there, meaning that pollen will keep on moving. So when you replant, it's not what you did, what you plant to come up with. So like with my team, like we're going to show you how the first thing we do, we have to mark. And like the spacing of maize has to be 75 centimeters by 25 centimeters. But again, like you might decide to increase to 50. Now, like when you increase to 50, like you'll be leaving 2 seeds per hole. So my team help me mark. Now the spacing from here up to here, it's 75 centimeters, meaning that from one line to another, it has to be 75 centimeters, which are 2.5 feet. So we can be able to change. Now we are going to use this string. Now for this string, like it's having a spacing of 25 centimeters. From one point to another is 25 centimeters. So here, like you want to be able to attain the plant population. Now because like for maize, in a square meter, you should be having 5.33 plants, meaning that in 1 acre, you'll be having about 21,000 plants. And in a hectare, like a hectare is 2.5 acres, you'll be able to have 53,000 plants. So basically, if you compromise on the spacing, and like if I tell you plant at 75, you plant at 1 meter, it means you'll be having fewer plants. Although the crops will be big, but they'll not be able to compensate for the extra plants like you would have got. Now, like my team is going to show you how like we make holes. Now, because like after marking, like we're having this side from one row to another 75 centimeter, then from one hole to another 25 centimeters. So, like you can help me make the holes as we are doing a dry run to show you how it has to be done in the field. Yeah. So basically, like he's doing it in reverse, so that like he does not cover the holes. Like we want the holes to be visible. Yeah. Yeah. That's it. Now like after making for this line, they'll be able to change to come to the second point, so that we can be able to to maintain that 75 centimeters we want. 75 from here up to here, and the 25 from one hole to another. Yeah. So now they're making a house. Tony, you can help me show them how to plant. Now, in 1 acre of maize, you need 10 kilograms of seed. And like when we are planting, we make sure that we plant 2 seeds per hole. 2 seeds per hole. Now, like depending on how the farmer wants it, like a farmer can be able to close like a little bit of soil and add the DAP, because during planting we apply DAP. We apply DAP. Yeah, like that he's doing it, then you cover. But then, like if you have let me say like a very big area. Now, like when you do it like the way they are doing it, let me say like when you're having 10 acres, the activity will be so much for the farmer. So like if you're having a big area, it's preferred that you just broadcast. And because here like you have to engage a lot of people to do what? To do the planting plus the adding of the DAP there. But then, like if you're having let me say like a very big area, like we can just decide to broadcast.
Mr. Semogere,
Yes, sir.
just a small question.
Yes.
There is something you said here.
Yes.
I understand you called it the DAF, this one.
Yes.
Huh?
Yes,
this
sir.
one here.
Yes.
How does one come up with this? Is it for buying, or if it is not for buying, can I come up with my own from the farm? Just being creative, can a farmer come up with their own?
Okay, this one is an inorganic fertilizer. It's made in the like factories make it. But again, like for the farmers now, like a farmer, if a farmer has a manure which could be sort of like the poultry droppings, they can be able to use it. But again, like what you should know in the poultry droppings, like you're having 4% nitrogen, and this DAP, the whole bag has 46% nitrogen. So meaning that if you are to use the poultry droppings with 4% nitrogen, it means you'll be able to use a lot of them in tons. But again, like here, now like if you're having 1 bag of DAP, which is 50 kilograms, you can be able to apply it in 1 acre. Compared to like, let me say if you are to use the chicken dropping, like where you need tons to do what? To apply. So basically, like as they are planting, now the most important thing is weeding. And like the first weeding should be done within the first 3 weeks. Now, like if your crop is affected and like you are very late at weeding, even if you bring the whole district to help you weed, it will be gone. So basically, you should be able to weed within the first 3 weeks. Then like now here, like we've been able to plant 2 seeds per hole. These 2 seeds per hole, like when it's like when you are doing the first weeding, you should thin and like you leave one plant per hole. And of course, like when you leave 2 plants per hole, it means the competition will be a lot. But then like for some farmers, if you tell them to remove the second plant, it will be as if you've killed a person. But it's recommended that after planting, like during that time of weeding, you should be able to thin and you leave 1 plant per hole to reduce the competition, because like we talked about the population, which should be in 1 acre and in a hectare. So basically here, like we just want to maintain the plant population. So basically, we should also be able to apply urea. Now, like when your maize reaches knee high. Now, like when it reaches knee high, you should be able to apply the urea. Like although some people are tall, other people are short, but it has to be like within the knee high. So also maize has different constraints. Now, like when it's growing, And like I think my colleague will be talking about the constraints.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jonah, thanks so much. So
You're welcome, sir.
something maybe I missed, and
Yes.
probably the farmer,
Yes.
the farmer back there must also have missed that.
Yes.
You told us about the spacing here. Maybe you would want to repeat for us,
Yes.
just so that the farmers can get that one. The spacing between one maize crop and another.
To another.
Then also the spacing between a line
Yeah.
of maize crops.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. The spacing from one line to another, which is from one peg to another, it has to be 75 centimeters or 2.5 feet. And like from one plant to another, it's 25 centimeters. But like depending on the farmer, now like if a farmer wants to leave 2 seeds per hole, the farmer might decide to plant at 50 instead of 25 from one plant to another. Yeah.
Okay.
It all depends on the farmer. Yeah.
Okay, I think the farmer who is watching from back, from wherever you are, you've gotten that right and clear. Well, from here, where John has been showing us the gardening, we shall be now crossing over to see what comes out from the garden. The crop that many of us see, the green crop that comes out from the garden. But don't forget, send those questions. If you have not understood anything from what Semogera said, please send in that question. And don't forget, this show is proudly sponsored by Stanbic Bank, the #1 bank for farmers in the country. Also, the National Social Security Fund is making sure that you, the farmers, are also captured by the NSSF system. But of course, we also have NARO that is making sure that this training is here with, for you today. And Nation Media Group, the company that makes sure that you have these farm clinics. That is the Daily Monitor, NTV, KFM, and of course Dembe FM. So I have another gentleman here who will be showing us a little bit about this crop. Like I said, it comes from the garden there. So if you don't do anything right back there, it means you won't have such a healthy crop. Yes, sir. Maybe you can tell us your names, and then we can see what we are looking at here.
Yes, I'm called Dr. Michael Tim. I work for the Cereals Research Program as an entomologist. I'll tell you about the crop that we see behind here. This is one of our maize crop at the Research Institute that we are managing. Having gone through the initial stages of production, rather preparation of the land, planting your maize, we are faced with a number of challenges in the field. And farmers have to ensure that they monitor their fields to ensure that they address problems as soon as they come in. And we have a number of challenges that farmers face. We have weeds, diseases, insect pests. As of today, I'm going to talk about one of the most important insect pests that we have in the country and the continent at large, which is the fall armyworm. This is a pest that is native to the Americas. First reported in Africa in 2016. Within a year, it had spread to more than 44 African countries and damaging mainly maize, sorghum, and other cereals. But it's a pest that attacks over 350 plant species. So in Uganda, we first recorded it in 2016. And since then, it has been causing a lot of damage on maize, reducing the production by up to 20% and increasing the cost of production up to 50%. So fall armyworm, I'm going to take you through the basics, biology of the fall armyworm, then aspects of the management of the fall armyworm. In terms of damage, fall armyworm is an insect that eats different parts of the maize plant. It starts eating the leaves initially. That's why you see these silvery patches. These silvery patches means the younger stages of the fall armyworm are the ones that have caused this damage. And farmers are supposed to be in the know of the different damage symptoms so that they know when to intervene. Finally, when you see holes like this, it means the larvae of the fall armyworm have grown older, and at that stage they are less susceptible to insecticides. So that partly explains why farmers will tell us that the chemicals that they have been recommended to use are not being effective, and yet partly it relates to the stage that they start using the chemicals. If this pest is not managed early, it will eventually migrate to the ear or the cob of the maize plant and eat the growing seed from inside. And in that way, it will be directly leading to the loss and also contamination by other organisms that may affect our health as when we eat the maize grain. So I'm going to use a small chart to take you through what we have about the fall armyworm, how farmers should identify this worm. I've already talked about the different damage symptoms. So usually, farmers are taken by surprise when they go to their maize fields. It's a pest that initially within 1 day, you will see your field to be clean. The next 1 or 2 days, the field will be heavily damaged, just because this pest is very, very damaging. Why is it so damaging? It has a very high reproductive rate. One female is capable of laying up to 1,500 eggs in her lifetime. They have a very high mobility. Within 24 hours, aided by wind, they can move even 100 kilometers. And then I indicated earlier that they attack over 350 plant species. So in the absence of maize, they have somewhere else they can live. And that's why we have to be very keen in managing this pest. So what we have is that, like I indicated, farmers often go to their field and are taken by surprise that the pest is in their field. And usually what they do is consult with their colleagues or the village extension agents who can help them to help advise them on the methods that they should use for managing this pest. Ideally, what we advise is, in the event that they are faced with a problem that they don't understand, then they should consult with the extension officers, which is the usual starting point. The extension should then be in position to monitor their fields, help them assess the level of damage. I must say that the presence of fall armyworm in your field doesn't mean you straight away initiate control. Fall armyworm can be managed. If there is heavy rainfall, the population will be low because rainfall will kill them. And how does rainfall kill them? This is a pest that lays its eggs on the leaves of the maize plants. The larvae will feed on the leaves and hide in what we call the funnel of the maize plant. Then they pupate in the soil. So rain does suffocate the larvae that are in the funnel of the maize plant. It also suffocates the pupae that are in the soil. And it also helps in washing away the adults and drowning the adults and then the larvae. And in that way, it will be reducing their population. But when there is too much drought, the damage is very severe. And so in terms of frequency of chemical control, farmers are less likely to apply chemicals when it is raining. But when it is dry, then that is likely to be a very big challenge. So like I said, this is a pest that lays eggs in batches on the leaves of maize plants or any other host. One single batch, which is almost the size of the tip of this finger, has about 200 eggs. And the viability is very high, almost 99% viability. They all hatch. And once they hatch, they start feeding on the maize plants at the young larvae and grow through different stages. It is unique in a sense that there are certain features that distinguish it from other insects. The fall armyworm, some larvae are greenish, brownish, and with a smooth body. But later on, they have what we call an inverted Y shape, which is typical of the fall armyworm, that farmers can easily tell. The other is that their eating is very unique compared to those of the stem borers that we are used to. Stem borers as well eat leaves, but they enter into the stems of the maize plants. The fall armyworm doesn't necessarily enter into the stems of the maize plants. So by recognizing these stages, it can help farmers to monitor their fields, even in aspects of management. For instance, if you got an egg batch like this, I said an egg batch can contain about 200 eggs. One can easily be in position to remove the egg batch and just crush it, even with the larvae. So in terms of damage, I've already indicated this. These are the earlier signs. You see some silverish damage symptoms. And you go up to the point where you see something like sawdust. This sawdust, and when fall armyworm just came, farmers were applying chemicals late. So they were intervening at a stage when we had this type of sawdust. The sawdust is their excreta, plus remains of the plants. And what happens once the larvae are eating, they are hiding inside the maize plant, and they push this sawdust-like particle up. When you spray, the spray only remains on this and doesn't access the insect itself, which makes it so difficult to control. So they can also attack the cobs of the maize plant, and here this is when it is most damaging because it's attacking what we exactly harvest. So all these are necessary for our farmers to know, and then key in terms of management, it's not a question of planting our fields and going back to relax, but we're supposed to be monitoring our fields for signs of damage of fall armyworm or any other problem in the field. So routinely, within maybe 1 or 2 weeks interval, we should be monitoring our fields. And for fall armyworm, once you get maybe about 20% or so of the plants, out of 100, you get 20 having damage, we recommend, if possible, you use one of the recommended insecticides for spraying this. We have come up with a list of insecticides that have proven to be effective against this pest that we recommend the farmers to use. And just behind us here, we are still evaluating more that should be used in the control of this pest. These are just some of the crops that can be attacked by fall armyworm: sorghum, millet, sugarcane, rice, beans, potatoes, cotton, groundnuts, elephant grass, wheat. The list is long, and we are still assembling that list as a country that we shall be eventually providing. So initially, before going into chemical control, we advise it to be the last. There are certain preventive measures that people are supposed to observe to ensure that we keep the population below damaging levels. One is the aspect of planting. When we are to plant, let's plant early. Planting early helps us escape the damage by this pest, but it also helps us take advantage of the nutrients that are in the soil just at the beginning of the rains for the plants to grow vigorously well. For those, and within context, who can use things like ash, pepper, or tobacco powder, we also recommend them to use those. But it depends on the scale of production. We wouldn't advise someone who has 10 acres to use tobacco or pepper or sand. So then, keeping the garden weed free. This is critical. We said fall armyworm has very many plants that it feeds on. So if you keep the gardens free, you are also reducing the number of other plants that this insect can feed on and or produce on. And then we can also ban the plants that have been affected by fall armyworm. I indicated it's also possible to crush the eggs or the larvae. You pick and crush, especially the egg batches. Once you crush one egg batch, you are killing about 200 individuals, which would have otherwise spread to the rest of the garden. So, but this also has to be used when it's very applicable. It can't be applied on a large scale. And then plowing. I did indicate that one of the stages of this pest is in the soil, the pupae. So when you plow, you expose the pupae, which can either be desiccated or attacked by other natural organisms. So the last, I said, chemical is not supposed to be our first, but our last approach to control of fall armyworm. Now, in terms of chemical control, I want to spend a little more time because the chemicals, first of all, one, associated with increased cost of production, and then they are have issues related to the health of the humans, the consumers, and the environment. So something on chemical. So we talk about chemical briefly, and in this, I want to talk about safe use of agricultural chemicals. And I'm just going to scan through briefly on chemicals. And in this case, the chemicals that we use for controlling insects, I will be using some terms interchangeably. They are called insecticides for controlling insects. And so initially, farmers must have make an informed choice of which insecticide to use. And this choice is governed by the availability of the chemicals in their local settings. If you go to different places, we have a list that we have recommended, so it is better to choose what is readily available. They are all effective, and sometimes the cost aspects also do come in. So it's about making the right choice of the chemical first and foremost. And for the farmers or people who use chemicals, we say the Bible of chemical use is what we call the pesticide label. It's important to read the label. The label gives you information on what that chemical can be used against, when you should use it, how you should use it, how much, it's all there. And in case of accidents, what you should do or what a doctor should do in case of accident. That's why I want to spend a little time on chemical use. And I'm emphasizing this because initially when maize was not yet attacked by fall armyworm, only about 20% of the farmers were using insecticides for pest control. But from 2016, 2017, almost 93% of the farmers started using chemicals. So we need to ensure that they are used wisely and in a way that is safe to the environment. So most importantly is to ensure that the farmers put on protective gear, which gear should be in position to protect the different body parts. Here what we are trying to do is to minimize exposure to these chemicals, because they kill insects, they can also harm human beings. So the aspect of protective gear is very important, but depending on the chemical, like I said, the pesticide label is the Bible. The different types of gear that are recommended are also provided in that. Then there is the aspect of correct mixing of these chemicals. We did realize when the pest had just come in, people were using a range of doses, low correct dose to high dose. The low dose was not effective. The correct dose was effective. High dose in a number of instances ended up killing the maize plants. So you would end up with dry maize plant or rotting maize plants because they used very high dosage. So we should be mixing the right volume in the right way, starting with some water, adding the chemical, agitating, and then topping to the right level. And we have to ensure that we mix the right amount so that we don't use so much of the chemical in this. And like I said, during application, we have to ensure that we have protected ourselves. We spray evenly. Spraying evenly is important. This is a pest that hides in the fern of the maize plant. So you have to spray the leaves, and you have to ensure that the insecticide also enters what we call the fern of the maize plant, because they have to be in contact with the pest for them to kill that pest. And when there is an emergency, it's better to put off the spray tank and then first handle that before you continue. And usually farmers must have water and soap with them for washing after the spraying. And here we advise to spray in the morning or afternoon hours. When it's so hot, it's also uncomfortable for the person who is doing the application. And also we want such a time when these insects can easily come out and get into contact with these chemicals so that they can have effect on them. So there are the don'ts during application. Aspects of eating, chewing sugarcane, blowing the nozzle are not advisable, or smoking. All these we don't recommend them while someone is applying the pesticides. We know, we are told by some farmers that we've been doing this since we were young and nothing has happened to us. But I must say that these chemicals have different effects on our bodies. There are those that come immediately, we get exposed to them, and there are those that come after a long time, what we call the chronic effects. And some of the cancers are associated with exposure to such chemicals. So that's why we emphasize the use of chemicals in a very safe way. And after spraying, we have to ensure that we remove all the protective gear that we have used, wash them, dry them, and keep them in a safe place for use the next time we are spraying. So the pesticides should be stored in proper places after use or even before use, where children cannot readily reach or where they cannot easily cause accidents to people. There should be designated areas. We shouldn't store them in our bedrooms. After spraying and we have empty containers, we need to dispose them appropriately. There is no single way that we can recommend for disposing these containers, but they are generics. One is, after the container is empty, it's important to wash. Some of the manufacturers recommend that you puncture them and bury them. So there are different ways, and all these can be found in the pesticide labels. If by coincidence you mix something too much, then it's better to at least finish that in the surrounding vegetation other than going to pour it elsewhere where it could be damaging. So there are other aspects that we have to consider when choosing some of these chemicals and using them. I indicated they could be dangerous to the user, to the consumers, and the environment. In the environment, these pictorials are provided on the labels to indicate what kind of organisms can be endangered by the pesticides. So if you get picture of a cow and hen, that means livestock and poultry. This is livestock alone. Or it could be dangerous to wildlife. We have to take that into account whenever we are using these chemicals. And in case of exposure, there are different symptoms that can appear. Some of them just involve itching of the skin, watering and burning of the eyes, headache, sneezing, or stomachache. Once farmers observe such symptoms, I please advise you not to just simply go and sit under shade and cool down, or others have reported to us that they swallow Panadol and that is okay. It's better to seek medical advice once you have such exposure. And when seeking medical advice, ensure that you have the label of the pesticide container with you, because it has information that the doctor can use for treating you. So there are different things, first aid, that can be given depending on what kind of accident has occurred if one has been exposed to these chemicals. Like when swallowed, some of them recommend you rinse your mouth with plenty of water, drink plenty of water, or induce vomiting, if the instruction says so. And I must say this, emphasize this, because conventionally we think that once somebody is exposed to a chemical that we must induce vomiting. No, you must read the pesticide label, because there are labels that even indicate that do not induce vomiting. Why? When the chemical is entering into the body, it's causing damage. When you induce vomiting, it's causing further damage as it comes out. So we have to read the label and see what kind of first aid must be given. So as I wind up, in terms of skin contamination, there is also removal, washing, and ensuring that you cover the surface that is affected. If it's taken in through breathing, you loosen, apply artificial respiration, and visit a doctor with the label. So all these are first aid information that people should be cognizant of and take appropriate actions. So I end up by saying that chemical control is supposed to be our last intervention, but we should use it with care. And I should say that no chemical that is recommended either for pest or disease control is safe. It's only how you use it that determines how safe you will be, or the consumers of your products will be. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Doctor, for that very insightful training. I think the farmers back there, you have your notebooks near you, and you're noting that down. Please, also the questions, I repeat, the questions, please keep them coming. I know there are some very technical terms that you may not understand, but please ask the questions. But take home from what the doctor has been telling us. Do not endanger your life in the process of saving the crop. We need both of you. So because both of you feed the nation. So as you struggle to save the crop, please also make sure that you protect yourself against the very dangerous chemicals, because they can be very harmful to your life. Well, when we come from the planting and where you've seen the gardening and the crop, the pesticides, what comes out looks a little bit something like this. And I see 3 sets of these here. I don't know what that means, but the gentleman with us here will tell us what it is. But I understand this is the value addition section. Am I right?
Yeah, we are yet to have the value addition.
We are yet to have the value addition. Okay.
Post-harvest handling.
You can maybe introduce yourself to the viewers, and then you take us through what is happening here.
Thank you so much. Yes, good evening, viewers. My name is Dr. Rwanga Charles Kasozi. I am a maize breeder working with the cereals program. This afternoon, I'm here to give a brief highlight on how our maize grain can be handled in order to maintain good quality of the grain. In the first place, all operations need to be done timely and in the right way. First of all, after producing your crop in the field and it has attained proper physiological maturity, you have to harvest it on time. As you can see here, the interviewer has asked about the 3 sets of maize we are having here. It's as a result of poor post-harvest management. So to ensure that we have good post-harvest management practices, we need to ensure that we do these things timely. On harvesting, when the your maize reaches physiological maturity, you have to harvest it. And when harvesting, you have to ensure that you harvest it while putting it on the tarpaulin, not putting it directly on the ground. Like you can see, when you put it on the ground, there is a lot of contamination with microorganisms, which microorganisms cause ear rots. At the same time, if you delay harvesting, your maize will fall down and eventually germinate, or if not germinate, it will lose the quality. If you can see these hips here, the first hip here is for proper maize. The second one is a heap of maize which has been harvested late in the field.
Just a moment, I think your microphone is not, you're not being heard. You can use this one.
Okay, thank you. So I was still explaining about the three sets of maize. The first set on my right is the set of the properly harvested and managed maize cobs. The one here in the middle is the one which maize has over delayed in the field, and as a result, the plants, they fall on the ground and eventually germinate. So you can see how much grain we lose as a result of over delaying in harvesting. Then the last one is the maize whose quality has deteriorated as a result of not sorting at harvesting. So when you have harvested your maize, you have to make sure that you sort it before drying. When you sort it, you reduce the chances of mixing the poor quality maize, the maize which has been affected by ear rots. You eliminate it from the right maize. Then on harvesting, you have to make sure that you dry your maize either on a tarpaulin like this or in a maize crib. A tarpaulin, that's the most...
There is something I'm seeing here, and I'm sure the farmer watching on TV has the same question. What is the difference between that, this, and this one here?
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yes.
Yeah, the difference is one. When the maize grows in the field, it has, first of all, in the first place, it is always good maize if it is properly managed. But due to poor post-harvest management, you find that you get these other groups of maize. The first group is this one here, whereby maize overdelays in the field, and as a result, it breaks down and falls on the ground. On falling on the ground, more especially when there's a lot of moisture in the soil, it germinates and you lose a significant percentage of your maize. So it is always recommended to harvest your maize grain when it has reached physiological maturity. That's when you'll be able to get good quality maize grain. Secondly, the other maize on the extreme left is to emphasize the issue of sorting. This maize, you can see it has an off color. It has an off color. You can even see it has a pinkish color. This is a sign of Fusarium wilt, or rather Fusarium microorganisms, which cause ear rots. So meaning that when you bring your maize from the field, you need to sort, make sure that you separate these affected maize cobs from the clean ones. Then, after separating, then you can dry the clean one. Then the poor one, you can dispose it of, either by burning, or if it is fairly good, you can give it to the animals, particularly the pigs or the livestock or the chicken. Then the methods of drying. There are two main methods of drying or technologies. The first technology, which is user-friendly to the farmers but very labor-intensive, is putting the maize cobs on the tarpaulin like this. You put it in the morning, then in the afternoon, you remove it. When it is threatening to rain like now, you have to cover or remove your maize. So it makes the process very labor-intensive. But if you want to have your maize managed very well and a cheap method is to construct a maize crib. I believe a number of farmers know how a maize crib is. A maize crib is purposely for drying maize. It is designed in such a way that it is raised high from the ground to make sure that there is no splashing of the water from the rain, at the same time to stop the rats from jumping into the crib. Similarly, when you are constructing the maize crib, you need to have rat guards. When you have the stands of the maize crib, you have to put the rat guards to stop the rats from entering into your maize you are trying to dry. At the same time, this maize, as I put it, the floor of the crib has to be at least 1 meter. This is around this height from the ground to make sure that the rats don't jump into it. At the same time, when it rains, the water does not splash into your grain to reduce the quality. Similarly, the crib must be oriented in such a way that the wind, when it flows inside, it blows out the moisture from your cobs to make sure that it dries. This process can take up to around 7 weeks. After 7 weeks, the maize cobs must have dried to at least around 15 to 17% moisture content. Then at this stage, you have to do the shearing. Shearing is the removal of the grain from the cobs. I have my colleague here by the names of Mr. Were Michael. He's going to demonstrate for us how we share our maize. Then after sharing, we shall move you through how we store our maize in different storage technologies. We have the PIX bags and we also have the metallic silo. So I request my colleague to move us through the sharing process. Then I show you other drying. Not drying, this has been drying. The other one is for storage. Thank you.
Okay, so Dr. Rwanga, as we wait for the side, what did you call this one?
It is a maize shearer.
A maize sheller.
Yes,
so,
please.
okay, yeah, maybe that's wow. Dr. Rwanga, so what do we have here?
So now,
And maybe in simple terms, what would you call this process that has just happened?
yeah, this is maize sharing.
Maize shelling.
Yeah,
Okay.
remember, I've emphasized the issue of sorting. As you are picking your maize from the field, you need to sort it. As you are drying it, you need to sort it. Sorting means you remove all the poor quality maize, and only remains the maize which is of good quality. So now we have shelled grain, which you expect to be of good quality. In fact, for your information, this is how we can attain grade 1 maize grain.
So by shelling, you mean removing the grains from the maize cob?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Mm.
Yeah. So what you have been describing is all the process of drying. Now we are going to demonstrate the processes of storage. From drying, we lower the moisture content from the field conditions, which is around 25, 20 to 17. Now after drying, the moisture content can be between 15 and 17%. But for long storage and to ensure that there is minimal maize weevil attack and the attack by storage by aflatoxin causing agent, that's the aspergillus flavus, we need to make sure that the moisture content is again lowered. So after sharing from here, you need to dry this maize, because right now it's an average of 15 to 17% moisture content. But for storage purposes, we need to lower this moisture content to less than to 13 and below. So the moisture content for storage is 13% and below. So from sharing, you dry it on the tapering for like 2 days, depending on the intensity of the sun. Then after which, you can either put it in the PIX bags or in the metallic silo. All these have the technology of denying oxygen to the weevils. So once you put the well-dried maize grain in the PIX bags, you make sure that you drive out the air, and once you have driven out the air, you can tie it, and by the maize in this way can stay for more than 6 months without any problem, without even getting discarded. So this is one of the ways of keeping our maize in a safe way. Another way is using you can put in the maize for the viewers to witness. So for purposes of demonstrations, we first, this PIX bag has 2 layers of polyethylene of plastic materials. So you first tie the inner one up to the level of the maize grain. Make sure that the oxygen has been driven out of your maize grain. Then after ensuring that the inner one has been tied, you also tie the outside one, and finally tie this material. Then you keep it on this. You put them above the ground on this material. So by doing that, you make sure that your maize is free from any water spillage on the floor. At the same time, there is free air movement within the store. So we have to put our maize on this pallet, the pallets.
For the maize to go in there, it has to be in these sacks.
No, please. This one is independently a storage.
The storage, and
technology.
This is another
storage technology.
And then there is something you mentioned here,
Yes.
the percentages in terms of moisture content.
Yes,
How
please.
does a farmer out there know that now I have 13%?
Yeah, surely. To a farmer, it is hard to determine, but usually we encourage our farmers to use this maize. When you have a very sharp sound, like now you feel this, it's it's very sharp. But when you compare these ones, it's not at all sharp. So the farmers can hit their maize when it has a very sharp sound. Others who are even experienced, they try to bite it. They can differentiate between what is very dry and what is not very dry. But for modern farmers, definitely, we expect them to have moisture meters. So once you're a commercial farmer, in order to ensure quality of your grain, you have to have a moisture meter, which will guide you to observe the right moisture content of your maize grain. So these two technologies are for the purposes of longo storage. But for temporary storage, like when you are going to sell your product immediately, you can just leave your maize grain in such ordinary plastic bags. But still you have to put it on the pallet to make sure that there is free air movement within the store. And also in the store where you're going to put your maize, you have to make sure that it is fumigated every time you are, every season. Like this season, when the season begins around August, up to around November, December there. So when the season has ended, you need to make sure that you clean your store very well and fumigate it. Make sure that all the remnants, all the pests, particularly the weevils and the moth, have been killed, so that when you are bringing in a new grain, a new crop, it is free from the pests, which would have taken advantage of the new crop you are bringing in your store. So
Okay,
basically that's what we had to say.
One other question.
Yes, please.
We have these two storage facilities.
Yes, please.
When do I use this? When do I use this one? I understand this one is easily accessible on the market, but this one here, how can a farmer get this, and at how much anyway, if the farmer wanted to use this one?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, sure, as you have put it, these ones, the PIX bags, are already available on the market. It's an average of 7,000 to 10,000 per piece, and and I need to emphasize the point that these materials are basically, not basically, but exclusively for storage. You cannot use one for transportation. If you have stored your grain and it has covered the period you want and you are ready for planting, you have to transfer these materials from the PIX bag. You put them to the ordinary materials, then transport them to the destinations. So that's about the PIX bag. Regarding the metallic silo, these ones, they are also locally fabricated. We have local artisans who can fabricate them, although the challenge is they usually fabricate them in big numbers, and the best way is to consult our colleagues from Kawanda, the post-harvest handling unit. Since they are handling the post-harvest and all those bits of post-harvest handling management, they are linking very many farmers to the fabricators. These particular ones were fabricated by steel and tube. So if they have big orders of around more than 100, they can always fabricate. But for small ones, our colleagues from Kawanda, they can always link you to the fabricator so that a farmer can secure his or her silo at reasonable prices. The prices, they range from 300, they told me it's around 500,000 to 700,000 per piece. And when do we use this or the other? When a farmer is storing his grain for home consumption and he wants it to be there for, say, up to 6 months, he can use that because that one can store up to 750 kilograms. This one can store up to 100. So these ones, you can have these ones 100 or thousands of them, depending on the tonnage of the grain you are having. You can use one if you are large scale, but for small scale, and if you are using for your home storage, you can use the silo. It also can vary. You can even find other farmers who prefer using these ones to these ones, depending on their convenience. You could find a large-scale farmer would opt to use the metallic silo other than the PICS bag.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Rwanga. There are quite a number of questions, I must assume, from the farmers, because this has been quite technical here, from identifying the moisture content, then how this one comes about. But well, we have a Q&A session, and please just keep those coming because we shall be answering them. We still have Dr. Rwanga with us, and when we get to the Q&A session, we shall be answering all those questions. Well, many of our farmers, from the usual getting posho out of the maize, I think many of us do not know that actually there are so many interesting components that we can get from the maize. Call it value addition. And I want to introduce another very interesting gentleman, Mr. Mukasa Yusuf. Please, Mr. Mukasa Yusuf, let me just get closer to him. Mr. Mukasa Yusuf will be taking us through some of the value addition products that come from maize. These, for example, they look like sorry?
Excluded maize.
Excluded maize. Okay, maybe you can explain to the viewers what excluded maize means.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mukasa Yusuf, a food biochemist from NARO, representing Food Bioscience and Agribusiness Program. You have been hearing Dr. Rwanga talking about working with Kawanda. So basically, I'll give a brief background of what the Food Bioscience and Agribusiness Program does.
Let me help you hold.
We have 4 mandates majorly as the program. We deal with food safety and quality assurance to make sure that the food products that the farmers produce are safe from physical contamination, chemical, and microbiological. 2, we have an area of agribusiness unit where we incubate farmers and where we also do business proposal writing for farmers and specialized individual groups like the youth. We also have a full area of value additional sciences and product development. We also have an area of biopreservatives on the food products that are generated. And as I talk now, I have come to emphasize something. You are all aware that the president is saying Vision 2040 has a cardinal goal of making sure that the Uganda should be able to be in middle income state by 2040. It means we have to increase household income, and one way of doing this is helping farmers access good markets. But in accessing good markets, they should have superior quality products that enter the markets. So one of our mandates is to help farmers develop products that have superior quality,
That actually can compete.
that are very competitive on regional and international markets. An example I'm having here is a composite flour made of maize flour and soya, fortified with vitamins and micro elements like calcium and iron. And you all know that food security is also crucial. An healthy mind makes an healthy body. We Ugandans need to be healthy. So some of these food products we make also contribute to food security by addressing issues of malnutrition. This composite flour, maize, is good for pregnant women, breastfeeding women, and the infants that are growing because it contains all the essential micronutrients. So the maize you are seeing here has so many issues because as the machine processes, we have a lot of physical contamination that happens here in form of chemical, physical, and microbiological, the molds. So what we do at Food Bioscience, we have innovative technologies that process further the maize product so that we come up with such products.
Okay, Mr. Mukasa, you said this is
This
soya
is composite flour mixed with maize and soya bean.
and soya bean. But then I see something like soya rice. Does it have also rice content in it?
It does not have rice content. This is soya maize.
Okay.
And the reason we are mixing soya and maize, we know that maize has high carbohydrate content, but we need soya which has high protein. So we fortify it with soya and then add some micro elements. This product becomes superior on
So
the market.
does that mean that if you have a combination of soya and maize, then you have a more superior product compared to when you have soya alone?
You are right. You have a more superior product containing so many functional ingredients that work together to bring about a multiplier effect. So another thing, we also have products. These are all maize-based products. You hold here. I want to talk about one thing. Even at Food Bioscience and the Agribusiness Program, we also promote indigenous foods. This is an example of maize mixed with local bamboo shoots, locally known as amalewa, a common dish in the Bugisu sub-region. So we also help promote these indigenous foods by adding value on them. This is a mixture of malewa and maize. We know that malewa has high fiber content, so when you mix it with maize, you make it more superior, so it's good for those people that are diabetic. So we are also promoting what we call inclusive food systems, because these days UN is promoting inclusive food systems. We have so many indigenous communities in Uganda. We don't want to leave them out there. So many people can come at the program with their indigenous food products, then we add value. So this is an example of an indigenous food product promoting inclusive food systems. Then this is maize mixed with cowpeas. And the most important thing here is to make sure that the product you have is biofortified, it is safe and contains all the necessary nutrients, but also it is superior in quality, very safe, and this is one way of promoting agro-industrialization. Such products can be adopted by semi-medium enterprises, particularly the youth. If there is a youth group that is out there, they can come at Kawanda and we help them incubate these products. We also deal with the elderly people, the youth. We deal with so many people who have ideas, so we incubate people. And this is one way of supporting agro-industrialization. So our program is basically based in agro-industrialization, value addition, and product development.
Okay, Mr. Mukasa, I'm particularly still interested in the Banotu soya maize. I understand you've excited very many pregnant mothers that are watching. When you say that this one is good for the pregnant mothers, where can they find this one? Is it available in the supermarkets? Can they locally do it for themselves from home?
They can locally produce the product when they are trained, but still if they want the product, they can also come at Kawanda, because we also do capacity building, but we can also train so that they can be empowered.
Okay. Okay. Is that all that we have from the value addition?
Value addition, basically don't only add value to maize, but all crop commodities that are of national significance and they have roles in communities. Because everything you see here can have, even these combs you see here, we can add value on them and turn them into livestock feeds. So that's what our program does, product development, but producing safe, reliable, and competitive superior products to develop Uganda.
Thank you, Mr. Yusuf Mukasa. Yusuf Mukasa has been taking us through the value addition. Yes, I'm still holding this one for a reason. For the pregnant mothers and you, the fathers that are making this happen, please make sure that the mothers have this product. But I want to thank the maize team from where we started, from the garden planting to the pests and diseases, to the silage here, where we did the shelling, and of course here with me, Mr. Mukasa, that took us through the value addition. So we still have more coming, but again, I want to remind you, please send those questions in. You have a question about maize, you have a question about dairy, please send the questions. You have a question to our sponsors, Stanbic Bank. Stanbic Bank is the #1 farm bank for farmers, the bank that is making sure that you, the farmers, capitalize your activities. And of course, NSSF also has made sure that the farmers are captured by the social savings system. Please go to any NSSF branch and ask them about the voluntary benefit. So please send those questions coming in, because after these 2 trainings, we shall have a Q&A session where all that and more will be answered. For now, let's take a commercial break. Yes, we are right here for our very final training for the day, and that is the dairy. Well, dairy is a very wide enterprise. It has the goats and cattle. Today, our main focus is more of the cattle. As you can see behind me, the very good-looking cattle here at the National Livestock Institute. But with me, to take me through all that and more, is Dr. Mwesigwa Moses, and he's a senior research officer here at NARO. Dr. Mwesigwa, good evening.
Good evening, viewers. Thank you very much.
Okay.
I'm here to share with the farmers the aspects of dairy farming.
Okay. So the aspects of dairy farming. I understand in there we shall have the breeds, the vaccines, the feeds, and more. Please take it on.
Thank you very much. Good evening, viewers. Once again, realize that many of our farmers are busy, but not in business. So in this short period, we are going to show you aspects of dairy farming. And for me, basically, I'm going to emphasize the breeds. Now, in Uganda, there are basically 4 major breeds that our farmers have, which they intend to get money from them after selling their milk. The first breed is the Frisian breed. This is usually black and white, like you can see this one. It has a high milk yield, but again the butter content is little, it's just 3.5. The second breed, which is this one, is the Jersey breed. This one is a small animal which I would highly recommend for our small-scale farmers. It has a high butter fat content of around 5.3, and the milk yield is relatively small, but compared to the solids in milk, this is the better animal I'd recommend. The third animal that I would recommend is the Ayrshire. It is right there. The Ayrshire is usually brown and white. It is also a good milk breed. However, to have a good milk breed, you must ensure that you have the capacity to select the right breed. Now, in selecting the good dairy breed, we emphasize the father or the sire. Now, in Nariri here in Nachesasa, we have a semen evaluation platform where we can select for the farmers the best breed in terms of milk yield by selection of the father. And in this case, we have a nitrogen production platform because we keep the semen at degrees that are below ice level. So we must ensure that to ensure good semen, we have a nitrogen from which liquid nitrogen where we put the semen. Again, another aspect that we have to do is to have to make sure that we select embryos. Now, in this research, in this institute, the ordinary farmer was always getting 1 calf per year. But in this research, we are going to make sure that we shall have a selection of heifers which can give us embryos around 100 per year, and it is those embryos that we shall be preparing the farmers' animals. Even if you have one indigenous animals, we can prepare it there and then bring the embryos. So instead of inseminating, we shall be quickly multiplying the dairy herd by taking those embryos to the farmers. So the Ayrshire I was talking about is that one which is brown and white. The rest are jerseys. The Frisian is here. Now, in doing this, we shall make sure that farmers get good embryos and also good semen, because farmers have been complaining. They came, they inseminated our animals, but they don't get pregnant. It could have been failure to maintain the cold chain. I wouldn't recommend farmers to have bulls on their farm. It is expensive, especially the smallholder farmers. But if you have good semen, which you can harm here and select for you, the semen has been evaluated, so the farmers will be easy, and will multiply their herd quickly. Then we also have a nitrogen delivery van, because this truck will deliver nitrogen, which has the embryos and the semen to all aspects of Uganda. This will shorten the distance of farmers from there to come for the embryos. So farmers out there, we want to make sure that you are busy and in business in the dairy business. So you can always come to us and we help you select the animals. You don't just have to use the color. There are other parameters which you can use to select the good dairy breed, and all those aspects, we have staff who can help you in doing that. So I'll tell our farmers there that use this institute. It's a government institute, so that we can give you all aspects to do with dairy breeds, so that you can get milk, and at the same time you get money from your dairy breeds.
get the best out of your cattle, I understand some of the things that you need are the feeds. Do you have the right quantities? Are you feeding your cattle on the right feeds? And how are they being treated? Well, those and more is yet we are about to see. Well, to go into the feeds right now, I'll be introducing Mr. Kato Hussein. Mr. Kato Hussein will be showing us about the feeds. These feeds that you're seeing down here, they are a mixture of so many things. I understand this is a complete feed. So you understand most of our farmers, you're just giving the cattle nothing added in there. But well, we are going to work on that. And I want to remind you, like we did with the maize training, please keep those questions coming. If you have a question about the breeds like you've just heard from Dr. Mwesigwa, please keep it coming. A question about Stanbic Bank, like I said, Stanbic Bank is the #1 bank for farmers. NSSF is also here with us. NSSF has come up with a system where you, the farmers, can be captured in the social security system. So please, if you have a question about that, don't hesitate to send it. But like I promised, we have Mr. Kato Hussein here who will be talking about feeds and more. Mr. Kato Hussein, I understand the feeds down here are a mixture of what we could call the complete feed that the cow needs.
Yeah.
What do you have to say about this?
Yeah. Good evening, viewers and dear listeners. Now, we have this feed. Yes, as I said, it is a complete balanced diet. It's supposed to supply all the nutrients this girl needs for the whole of the day to give us the 20 liters of milk we expect from it. Now, nutrition or feeding actually costs over 70% of the production costs in a dairy farm. Secondly, if somebody is planning to set up a dairy farm, it's very important that he first thinks about the nutrition of those animals. Because the moment you have your animals on the farm, for them they will be demanding for food. Therefore, the best planning should be, you begin with planning for the feed the animals are going to eat before the animals are on the farm. Before you buy the animals, first invest in food production. Grow the feeds, process the feeds, make them ready, then you go and buy the animals. Now, in feeds for livestock, especially for dairy, the largest proportion comes from grass. And we have a number of good quality grass species that we recommend for dairy farmers. These include mostly napier grass. Then we also have forage maize. Those ones are good sources of energy. In addition to those, we also have the legumes that are supposed to supply the proteins. These ones include mostly centrosema, cilantro, glycine, alfalfa, caliandra, lucina, glycidia, and sesbania, to mention but a few. But there are also major ones that must not miss this list. That is lab. These are good sources of protein. Because remember, we keep these animals purposely to get milk from them. And yet milk is the most nutritious food mankind has. But all these nutrients we find in milk must be replenished in the animal's diet if we expect to get milk continuously from these animals. Therefore, the diet of these animals must be very nutritious to target, to produce, for these animals to produce the amount of milk we get from them. So, how do we grow the feeds? Number one, we have to focus on the most bulky feeds, that is the grasses, because they constitute over 50% of the animal's diet. And of all the land you have demarcated for dairy farming, the largest proportion should go to growing grasses. It's common practice that our dairy farmers grow elephant grass for cut and carry or for making silage. This is very good. Others are now focusing on forage maize. It's very good because these two grasses are very good in making silage. Silage is one of the most important sources of nutrients for the dairy cow. But they are not sufficient. They are good sources of energy. We also have to blend them with legumes, especially central, lab, alfalfa, and caliandra. These are very important sources. For the central, it's possible to intercrop it with elephant grass or forage maize so that you harvest together and make silage together. That silage will be of high quality and it will give you good amount of milk. Essentially, you can sustain up to 12 liters of milk if you have good quality silage without any need for supplementation. But if you need more milk, then you need more protein, and therefore you have to add more protein from other sources. After that, we also have compounded feeds. This is where we bring in the crop residues like maize bran, the crop grains like soya, like maize grain. We formulate concentrates which we mix together with the silage and the hay made from the grasses to make this complete feed for the animals. If you can make this TMR, we call it a total mixed ration. If you can make this TMR, then you don't even need maize dairy meal to get milk from your animals. This one is complete. It meets all the requirements of the animal for milk production. Now, how do we make this feed? The biggest component is from grasses, and these grasses are conserved. So, when we harvest our forage, our napier grass, our forage maize, we make silage out of it. And this silage is made through harvesting the forage. When it has reached the right time for harvesting, we chop it into fine pieces. We can use the tractor, machinery or equipment like the forage harvester. But for the smallholder farmer, NARO has established small forage choppers that are quite very handy. So in case you are interested in these, please, you can contact NARO at Nachesasa Naleri here. We are the authors of those forage choppers, and they are very good. These choppers are good because, first of all, they are economical. A chopper chops 1 ton of forage using 1 liter of diesel in an hour. This is quite economical. Then 2, these choppers are manufactured in Uganda here. So when they break down, we are just a call away. We shall be able to repair these choppers and keep the farmer in production. Now, in addition to silage, we also make hay. We actually make hay from the grasses like chloris, like sencras, and also the legumes like centro, cilantro, stylo, and even caliandra. We need some machinery to make the silage, to make the hay. And here we have 2 sets of machinery. We need the hay slasher to cut the hay, expose it to sunshine so that it can dry up a bit. And then we get the baler that picks the grass and rolls it into a bale to make it easy for transportation and storage. After that, then when we are making this feed, we have seen through studies that you need to cut down the cost of wastage of feed. And the best way to cut down the wastage of feed is through chopping it to make sure that we limit the element of choice in these animals. We use the forage chopper to chop the forage so that it can easily be mixed into the TMR, and also most importantly, to cut down on wastage of feed. Once the hay is made, then we can add in the concentrates which are made from the feed factory. They are mixed in the feed factory. They will include ingredients such as maize grain, cotton seed cake, soybean, roasted soya or soybean cake, sunflower cake, then the mineral sources like Vitafos, then we have the premixes for the vitamins in some cases, and we have the non-nutritive additives to protect the feed. For example, we have the toxin binder to control the aflatoxins that might have been in mainly the cereal grains. Once that one is done, we mix, and then we use the TMR mixer to mix this feed into a compounded feed, and it's that TMR mixer that comes and dispenses the feed along here to feed the animals. This is something that would have taken a lot of labor, but with mechanization, labor is cut off and time is saved. Now, in most cases, on a dairy farm, you have the milking animals, you also have the growing stock, but the main product of the dairy farm is milk. Through our research, we've established that it is possible to earn more money from milk sales if you have feeds like the milk replacer, which replaces milk on the calf crop. A herd like this one, at any one time, we have about 50 calves, and each calf consumes 6 liters a day, which will be a total of 300 liters. Now, if you have a milk replacer, which is cheaper than the price of milk on the market, you'll be able to save a lot of milk and sell it for that purpose. All these feeds are available at the Institute. In case any farmer is interested in them, please, our communication is available, our numbers are available. We shall be able to provide you with these feed ingredients.
Wow. Thank you, Mr. Hussein Kato. Kato, like I said, is a very wide enterprise, and yeah, we still have a lot more to cover, but right now we shall go for a very short commercial break, and we will be right back. Well, like I promised, we still have more to talk about as far as the cattle is concerned. We have the diagnostics, call it the disease testing, and we also have the health or maybe the vaccination. However, to start with, I have Dr. Tony Kavuka. Dr. Tony Kavuka will be taking us through the testing and the diseases. Well, I understand the cows, most of the losses are coming from the diseases. What can you tell the farm about this?
Thank you very much, and thank you, our viewers. So here in Naro, we have a testing facility. But before we even come here to test, you as the farmer, as our dairy farmer, there are things that you have to look at from this animal, and you will be able to tell that it is not okay. So the first thing that you do before, when you're starting this enterprise, when you're starting to get your dairy animals on the farm, you have to look out for the attributes. You have to see how the animal feeds. Sometimes you can check how it behaves. Until that time of production, then you can tell that actually we're having a problem. So most of the common problems, the first common sign you'll see, the animal will not be eating. It will not be feeding. So usually you find it lying down. It is not, if they're in a group, usually one of them is away, the one that is not okay. So as Naro Naliri, we have established a service where we want our dairy farmers, we want all other kinds of farmers to come here and to bring samples so that we can help them in testing when the animals get problems. So today, to be specific, I want to talk about East Coast fever. This is transmitted, as you can see here, we have a range of ticks. We have the common ticks. These ones, as a farmer, you can quickly pick out. You can quickly check together with your, I request the farmers not to leave the herdsmen or the caretakers only. This is something that you can also see, and you realize that, okay, we are having parasites on these animals. So the other common challenges like milk, our facility here can test from the basic tests to the advanced. Advanced meaning we can go all the way to PCR. So here we have some of the farmers, the things that they have brought here. We have a representation of these ticks here. The diseases they cause are more or less the same, but the control is the same, like my colleague is going to talk about. In our facility, we can still we can check for more diseases like foot and mouth disease. That is a disease from the viruses. We can check bacteria. We can check all these ticks, like you can see our microscope here. But the common thing that we encourage you, our farmers, is that you have to do the first diagnosis. So our platform here encourages us. It's a new program. It is encouraging our farmers to come here to bring samples to us. Alternatively, you can call us, then we come to you and we pick the samples and we come and check them here. So as a way of continuity, we have our numbers and we have our people that you can contact. You can visit our website. You can come to Nachesasa here in Naliri, and we check and you get our services from either we come to you or you can come to us. In this session now, I would like to talk about the control. I would like to invite my colleague, Dr. Moses, who is going to talk about the control of the common diseases.
Okay,
thank
you, Dr. Tony. I think that was quite clear. Well, personally, I have so many questions, and I see many of them coming in from social media. A question from, I see Validawa Bernard from social media. We shall be answering those. However, like Doctor has said, we shall be going into another session, that is the health and vaccines, and we shall be having Dr. Moses Dikusoka. Well, as Dr. Moses Dikusoka gets himself ready, please keep the questions coming. And again, I want to stress, Stanbic Bank is the #1 bank for you, the farmer. If you want an investment in machinery, capital financing, please go to Stanbic Bank. To any of their branches, they have agribusiness loans at very friendly prices. We also have NSSF. NSSF is here with us to make sure that you, the farmers, are saving for your retirement. I understand even agriculture at a certain stage you have to retire and let the others take over. But I want to introduce Dr. Moses Dikusoka to come and take us through the health and vaccination. Yes, Dr. Moses, please come over.
Thank you so much.
Yes, so health and vaccination, we've seen from Dr. Kabuka telling us about the diseases and all this. But I understand these diseases can be avoided.
Yes.
And that is through vaccination.
Yes.
How do we do this?
Thank you so much, NTV. Welcome once again, our viewers. I'm a senior research officer working with NARO, and I'm one of the livestock vaccine experts in the country. As NARO, we are here to develop some of the technologies that farmers can use not only to control diseases manually and on their farms, but we are also looking at other measures that we can use to prevent the oncoming diseases that affect your animals, which you cannot treat using drugs. So, as my previous doctor has been saying, we have got a lot of tick problems in the country, and they cost Uganda up to 3 trillion. As researchers, we have been looking at the methods that you are using to control ticks. Most of you are using chemicals, which are called acaricides. Some of you apply spray-ons, and others dips. But despite all these methods, the ticks that you are trying to fight, these ones on this list, have developed measures of fighting them. And so we have a problem of anti-tick resistance. So to avert this, we, as scientists in NARO, we developed the first anti-tick vaccine that is able to control this tick. The way it does is the animal is vaccinated, and when the ticks jump on the animal, they will be able to take the antibodies that contain the vaccine response, and these ticks will keep on dropping off and they will die. So what happens is that we tried out this anti-tick vaccine on station, and we observed that it gave us over 75% efficiency in controlling the ticks on our animals. And we believe that when farmers, when we get to the level of rolling out the anti-tick vaccine, and you work with us, we will be able to control the ticks that are both on the animals are also in the field. What are the advantages of adopting the technology of using the anti-tick vaccine? One, the farmer will reduce on the costs that he spends on buying chemicals every now and then. Two, the effect of the acaricide on the environment will also be minimized. Three, as farmers, we will be able to not only control the ticks that jump on your animal, but even as the animal goes out in the field, all the ticks that jump on the animals in the environment will eventually be reduced. And in the long run, through the technology of using the anti-tick vaccine, we will manage the expenses that we put on our farms. As an institution, we are not only focusing on the anti-tick vaccine. We have other experts that are also working with us on other vaccines, such as African swine fever. We are also working on improving on the current foot and mouth disease vaccine. That is a big problem and is hindering our country from exporting its meat and dairy products. As far as FMD is concerned, as an institution, we have embarked on also evaluating the vaccines that we are using in the country, because there was a very big cry from the farmers that probably the vaccine we are using doesn't work very well. But we want to thank the government of Uganda for giving us the support. At the moment, we are evaluating it on station, and if you have got problems with the vaccine, pick a sample, bring it to Nariri, we shall give you the results. At this moment in time, I would like to thank the government of Uganda for giving us the funding to be able to construct the first livestock vaccine industry in Uganda. We want to promise the public that in a very short time from now, we will be able to have vaccines in livestock produced at Naro, in Nariri, at Nachesasa. So I would welcome all types of questions, and I'm hopeful that all the farmers, as we go through this kind of these challenges, adopt the different preventive techniques and be able to control diseases. Thank you, viewers.
Well, thank you, Dr. Dikusoka. Well, the questions are many. You welcome them, but they are quite many. We are going for a short commercial break, then we shall go into the Q&A session. But Dr. Dikusoka, just quickly, there is a question here from a gentleman in Ntungamo. He's called Quisho Elvis. Quisho Elvis is asking, what are the best feeding methods for animals on free-range system? Well, I think that one will be answered at a certain point, but this one may be particularly to you, since you've been talking about the diseases. Wafula Stephen from Busia is saying, your cows look good. How do you keep your animals free from diseases?
Thank you so much, Wafula. We as an institute, we have adopted a number of integrated measures at the institute. One, we ensure that we have put a ring fence around the institute farm, whereby no other external animals enter in this unit. So we keep the animals within our unit when they are disease-free. As a farmer, we monitor our animals on a daily schedule, such that in case we have any animal that has got issues, we immediately pick samples, examine, and be able to address the exact problem rather than treating without knowing the kind of disease the animal is suffering from. And this being an enclosed system, one of the best ways of keeping animals healthy is ensuring that you control entry of other animals within the animal system and have a good management system, a good feeding system. We have a good recording system, and we monitor a lot of things. So as a farmer, employ a vet and let him give you the best tips that can keep your animals healthy.
Okay, Quisho, I hope that has been answered. Just the final one, quickly, as we go for the commercial break. Mukonyezi Arthur from Nakasongola is asking, what solutions would you suggest for us farmers in areas that have resistant ticks? I think these ticks are kind of adopting to to the conditions, so they are becoming resistant with time. How does the farmer get to avoid this?
Thank you so much. One of the issues concerning the disease-resistant ticks is that if you observe that you have got disease-resistant ticks, I would encourage you to pick some of those ticks and bring them over to the laboratory here at Naliri. We are having a section where we can be able to establish to what kind of acaricide are the ticks that you are talking about resistant. Because it's not just a matter of seeing ticks on the animals and you say they have got resistant. Another method is there is always a regime on the way you are supposed to use acaricides in the protocols that you get when you buy the medicines, the acaricides. Be sure that you consult the veterinarian before you use the acaricide. Many times, farmers are using the same kind of acaricide for a very long time. Sometimes they use low doses. Sometimes they mix different acaricides. And at the end of the day, the ticks get used to those acaricides. But if you share this with your vet, the technical guidance he will give you will be able to help you to overcome the problem. However, in case you are getting big problems in this area, I request you to pick our numbers that are going to run on the screen, invite us to come and pick those ticks, and you are able to evaluate them and give you the technically guided acaricide that can use to knock them down. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Dikusoka. The questions are quite many. I see them coming through here. Wafula Stephen in Busia, Lois Namubiru in Mukono. Very many and very interesting questions. Well, we shall go for a short commercial break, and when we come back, it's strictly Q&A. Welcome back from that short commercial break, and like I promised, we are here now for our final session, and that is the Q&A session. But again, I want to thank the farmers, the viewers that have sent in the questions. Please, thank you so much. We shall be answering them, each and every question in this very session. However, I want to introduce to you the director for this particular institute where we are today. Just to say a word or two, he will tell us what this institute is doing and probably what they want to do in the future. And that is Dr. Fred here, Kavi, who is going to be talking on behalf of the institute. Doctor, good evening.
Good evening.
Yes, how do you find the farm clinic today?
Very interesting today.
Very interesting.
And we are very grateful to Monitor Publications and all other parties for enabling a virtual farm clinic to take place at Naliri. My name is Fred Kavi, as you have said, and on behalf of the director, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to all my colleagues for having trained the farmers so well. I would also like to recognize NSSF, Stanbic Bank, KFM, and all the players into this game. I want to assure you viewers, farmers over there, that Naliri is developing technologies under different platforms, for example, the vaccine platform, biosciences, dairy, and all these platforms will enable you to be able to make money out of farming, especially dairy farming for today. I welcome you once again. Next time you come back and you enjoy other technologies which you have not been able to see because of the limited time. As Joshua said, we are going to be answering questions. He will read a question, I think, and then we shall call the senior research officers so that they can be able to answer the questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Fred. Well, the questions are quite many, and as you've seen, we've had about 3 trainers per enterprise. So your questions are not particular to any trainer, but well, they are all knowledgeable in everything that has been taught. I'll start with cattle. This is Issa Mubiru. Issa Mubiru is asking, my farm has too much cow dung. Advise me on how best it can be utilized. And is there any market for the cow dung? I think that is Mr. Hussein Kato. Mr. Hussein, yes, Issa Mubiru has a problem of too much cow dung on his farm. How can you advise him?
Well, I don't think cow dung being too much on a farm is a problem. He only needs to know how best to utilize it, because it is another good resource.
How best can he utilize the cow dung? And if he utilizes it in any way, is there a market for it?
Okay. It is possible to convert cow dung into energy, and this is through biogas. You can make biogas from cow dung, and after making biogas, the resulting slurry can also give you a number of products which are actually profitable. The most common one and most attractive one is the biopesticide, which is actually needed for all farmers practicing organic agriculture. And some farmers who have done it have even reached to the extent of selling it, exporting it out. So you can make biogas, which will save you the need for energy, it will save your trees, and it will save the environment. You can also get from the slurry, you can get the biopesticide and save your gardens and yourself from the chemical pesticides. After that, you still have a good fertilizer, which is the remaining slurry, which you can take back to the field, and you recycle all the nutrients back to the gardens to be able to practice what we call organic agriculture.
Okay. Issa Mubiru, I think that has been answered. Well, like I said, the farm clinics have been made possible by Stanbic Bank. Stanbic Bank has the lowest interest rate for you, the farmer. 16%, that is the lowest on the market. Where else would you find that? So please, every farmer, go to Stanbic Bank and get that loan. But also, they've partnered with Bank of Uganda on the Agricultural Credit Facility, the SCF. And with that SCF, the loan is at 10%. So this is the best opportunity that you, the farmer at home, has to capitalize your farming activities. Stanbic Bank has 75 branches all over the country. Just walk into any of the 75 and you'll be helped. Well, NSSF is another that is making sure that you are watching this farm clinic live from home. And I want to invite Donald from NSSF to come and talk to us about the agriculture, about the voluntary benefit scheme. Yes, Donald, this is something that you talked about last time when we were in Kawanda, the voluntary benefit scheme. What is the voluntary benefit scheme all about, and how does a farmer get to onboard to it? Where do they find you, and what are the benefits of being part of this?
Currently, our branch network is across the country, so you walk in and then you'll be able to be helped. You only have to have a national ID or to have an NSSF number, which can be given to you for free to be able to save with NSSF voluntarily. The benefits of saving with NSSF are immense. We give you the best interest rate currently on your savings, and we guarantee you safety of your retirement, both financial and mental safety. Okay,
so that means we no longer have farmers that are retiring into poverty.
Well,
because many of the farmers, they've been maybe because of the methods that they are using to farm. So they incur so many losses, and then at the end of it, they haven't saved anything from the farm. So how is that something that is the voluntary benefit? Is it something that has come to fill that kind of gap?
Yes. Well, according to NARO, we are doing a lot of rudimentary work, both in the farm, but also in our finances. We are still saving money without seeing growth in investment rates and incomes. So we need to change our ways and start forecasting our retirement from the farm. So income from farming can be saved, a portion of it, not all of it, and it can be used for your retirement. That's what we are providing to the farmers through the farm clinics.
Okay. Please don't go very far. You can go back, but I'll certainly call you back. There is a question from Twitter. That is Waswa Jackson. Waswa Jackson, I think this goes to Dr. Mwesigwa. Dr. Mwesigwa, you can come just near here. Waswa Jackson is asking, he's saying, NTV Uganda, I'm here watching Seeds of Gold, but I would like to ask, I would like to ask the doctors. I want to buy a good breed for my mom, but I don't know which type to buy and how much it can cost me. Please help me.
First of all, I have to thank you for thinking good that you cater for that elderly lady. I want to advise you that there are many farms which sell good breeds of cattle, but you need expertise to select. I would advise you that the producer is going to give you our phone numbers so that you can call us and we talk on one-on-one, the size of land you have, the management practices you intend to have, so that we can advise you better. You can also walk in our offices anytime and we discuss on one-on-one so that we give you the details, which you cannot give right now. Thank you very much.
Okay, I think just this one will also be answered by you. This is Semakula Abraham from Nansana. Semakula is asking, those structures at the farms seem to require massive capital investments. What advice do you give me, a small income farmer that wishes to have such? I think what he's trying to say, can they have this on small scale?
Thank you very much. The good thing you are in Nansana and are also in Nansana municipality where this farm is. These structures can just be copied. You can copy where you see a metallic bar, you put a wooden bar, so that you can copy even all this structure and customize it to your income. Where you see the roofing, you can put there papyrus sheets. Where you see the standing metallic pillars, you can put timber. So these things are practical. What is important is to have the animals and then you tailor-make the structures to that animal. Kindly come to our farm and we shall give you all that advice. Thank you.
Okay, this one is for the maize team. The maize team, please just come near here. Okay, Martha Mwesigwa from Hoima is asking that she's saying she enjoys the training, especially when you, social distance please, when you, of course, even at the farm we have to emphasize the social distance. Yes, so you can, so Martha Mwesigwa is asking that she has been following the training, especially where you talked about the diseases and the pests. But she's saying, if I've done all this, how can I boost maize production? She seems to be struggling with the output from her farm.
Thank you, Martha, for that question. I think if she has done all that, then she should be in position to get a good maize harvest. But I must just say that what I'm recommending is something that is general, but specific farm level recommendations are also required. But to Martha, like we indicated during the training, what is key is first of all starting with proper land preparation, getting the right seed of the right quality, ensuring that you control the weeds, control pests and diseases, and you should be in position to get a very good yield if you maintain all the good production practices of maize.
Okay, please just stay right there. One more question. This is from Teko Daniel from Alebtong. Teko is asking, he's saying, what is NARO doing to help maize farmers across the country? It looks like their knowledge just ends in their demonstration farms and on TV. This is a question that has come up repeatedly from all the farm clinics that we've had. Yes. The farmers are saying, well, you're giving us this knowledge on TV, but we don't see it out there. If we went to the market and, for example, they are asking about the value addition products that you've talked about, they don't find them. How can this be made easier for them?
Yeah, thanks, Daniel, for that question. I think I must say that NARO technologies have gone to all parts of the country. As NARO, we develop a number of technologies that unfortunately in certain cases like varieties end up changing names and people do not associate them with NARO. I believe Daniel today had lunch with one of the NARO varieties of the crops, or even if it is animals, that animal should have come from NARO. What we are doing as NARO is we are developing technologies that are subsequently released and disseminated using different pathways. We are thin on the ground, but as NARO we have different research institutes. We have 16 institutes, 9 of these that are zonal research and development institutes, and in Alebtong, Aleptong is served by Ngeta Zonal Agricultural Research and Development Institute that does adaptive research of all the innovations that have come through NARO. So as NACRI, for instance, a maize research program, we've also reached Aleptong, and we have built capacity. We have sensitized farmers on the technologies that we have, and I'm reliably informed that in Aleptong, one of the key varieties of maize that is commonly grown, UH5051, is one of the varieties that is released from Namlonge, and the Aleptong people are benefiting from it a lot. Thank you.
Okay, Doctor, just two final ones before I let you go. Mwesimye Anita in Masaka is saying, is it a continuous risk if we do not stop using chemicals in food crops and animals? I think that is something you touched a bit when you were talking about the chemicals, the spraying and all that. But another one, you answer them at once. What seed types do you recommend for me in order to have heightened production? Now, this is from James Atubo in Aria.
I start with the James Atubo. One is that increasing maize production or productivity doesn't simply depend on the seed type, but it's a package, like I initially indicated, that we have to use right from the choice of the seed up to management practices. But in the case of seed types, for instance, we now advocate for planting hybrid seed compared to open pollinated varieties. One, the hybrid seeds have high yield potential of up to 8-9 tons per hectare, whereas the hybrids yield about 4 to 5 tons per hectare. So when you plant hybrid seed, you are expected to get more yields. And it's not only the hybrid, but each of the varieties that are developed by NARO come with certain unique attributes. These days, because of the impact of climate change, we are going into more of the drought-tolerant varieties that have been developed and released and are currently being promoted in different parts of the country. And that partly now answers the issues of drought and other things that come in. So in terms of seed production, one, or variety production, there are varieties that are adaptable to the different regions. And for drought, we advise you to go for the drought-tolerant varieties, and then those that could be short maturing, especially when they expect the rainfall period to be short. And then the element of risk of using pesticides is indeed true, and that's why in my presentation I did indicate that we are advocating for safe use. It is a continuous risk to use these pesticides, but when you safely use these, following the recommendations, you minimize the effects or the exposure to these chemicals and therefore reduce on the possible impacts. But above all, as NARO, we are coming up with technologies that reduce the use of pesticides. In the case of maize, for instance, we are developing varieties that could be planted and that are tolerant or resistant to some of these problems. And then we are coming up with our innovations. For instance, for fall armyworm, right now my team is researching on possible alternatives that can be used, like other insects that eat fall armyworm, diseases that attack fall armyworm, that we can eventually multiply and then ensure that we distribute to the different regions, and they should help us minimize the use of pesticides that we currently use.
Okay, thank you, Doctor. I think that has been very, very convincing. This one is for cattle, and I think it goes to Mr. Hussein Kato. Mr. Hussein, a question here. What grass species are best for planting in order to make silage or hay for dairy cattle, putting into consideration palatability and nutritional value?
Is that?
Well, this one has no name, but
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you, dear farmer, for that question. It's quite practical, because the way to go is conserve forage, increase yield. You'll be able to increase the productivity per unit area of land put under livestock production. Now, the best, so far, the best forages for silage are as follows. Number 1 is forage maize, 2, Napier, and 3, giant panicum. And then we actually recommend you interplant these ones with legumes so that you get a high quality silage that, in addition to supplying energy, it also supplies proteins. It will help to reduce the costs per liter of milk you are producing. So you should include legumes like centro, cilantro, and where possible, especially like in maize, forage maize, you can even add lab. Now, for hay, the best forages so far for hay in terms of grasses are mainly Chloris guyana, that one comes number 1. Then Cenchrus ciliaris comes number 2. And then 3, giant panicum. But still, you can interplant them with legumes. The legumes include centrosema, cilantro, and where possible, you can even interplant glycine. They can work very well as intercrops. Now, for the case of animals for meat, the best forage would be hay. There, you need to focus on the what? On the hay, with good mixtures of legumes and grasses.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kato. Nancy Mirembe in Mutungo, your message has been received. You're just appreciating the organizers of Seeds of Gold, and you continue to say it has opened the eyes of the farmers. Yes, it has really done much for farmers. Well, I think this one will go to Dr. Fred Kavi. Dr. Fred, since you're representing the director, a question here. Someone says, which places in Uganda are most suitable for both maize farming and animal farming? Well, I understand this very particular institute has both maize and the animals. So how would you advise such a Ugandan? Yes, do we still have places that are particular to a type of, to any type of enterprise, or with the new methods now, a farmer can do agriculture anywhere, anytime?
I think a farmer can be able to do agriculture anywhere, anytime. You don't need very specific places, especially for livestock, unless the maize person has better places for maize. Mike, maybe you have better places for maize.
Please.
Thank you very much for that question. I think I should say that all the areas in Uganda are suitable for maize production. What is important is the choice of the varieties that are adapted to those areas, and then the management practices that go with those varieties. Otherwise, maize is produced all over the country.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Mike. Well, Dr. Kabuka, I think this also is in line with what you said. What are the most conducive means of preserving milk? I think when milk goes sour, is it a thing of the bacteria or something? I don't know. What could that be? Is it Dr. Mwesigwa? Okay, please come. What are the most conducive means of preserving milk? This is Lema Gabriel in Kampala. Yes.
Oh, thank you very much. The best way to preserve milk is to add value to it. This you can do by having a homemade yogurt, a homemade ice cream with the very minimum costs. So here at Nature Sasa, we are trying to develop methods which are user-friendly by even a small farmer to make sure they add value to the milk. And by doing this, we shall not just be focusing on nutritional aspects, but we shall also be focusing on health aspects. For example, you can have anti-cancer yogurt. You can have anti-aging yogurt, but by just adding a few attributes of health aspects. And this, you can be able to add value to the milk other than just preserving it. Because in the long run, you want to have it eaten, but you can conserve it by adding value to it. I also want to say that post-harvest production in Uganda goes to 65% as loss. Therefore, the issue of value addition is very important to narrow, and we are very sensitive to that. If you go to one of our stations in Kawanda, there is a full program on post-harvest handling, so you can always go there and get knowledge in that area. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Mwesigwa. Please, the questions are very interesting, and I want to thank everyone that is sending in their questions. Well, like I said, this partnership is between NARO and the Nation Media Group. Of course, Nation Media Group, NTV, Daily Monitor, KFM, Dembe FM, and the East African. I want to invite Jane Kugonza from NARO Secretariat to come and say a word or two. Of course, NARO has been a long-term partner on this Seeds of Gold farm clinics, and we've come a long way into the COVID now, where we've had the virtual farm clinics. From the experience of both maybe we call it the traditional way of the farm clinics and this one. How would you say the farm clinics have helped NARO to achieve its objectives?
Good evening, viewers. My name is Jane Kugonza. I'm the outreach officer for NARO. On behalf of my director for Directorate of Technology Promotion, I would like to thank the viewers and the partners that have really made this happen. This is our 21st Seeds of Gold Farm Clinic. We have come a long way, but without the partnership, it would not have happened, and without the viewers, would not have made any relevance. Let me take this opportunity to thank all the partners, especially Nation Media Group, and all the rest, including Monitor, Publications Limited, Stanbic Bank, NSSF, KFM, and all those people who have really put together efforts to make this happen. The farm clinic, as the word suggests, it is farm and clinic. As you all know, a clinic is for treating patients. So who are the patients? Viewers, we are looking at our audience as patients in terms of farming, having challenges of farming along different commodity value chains. Today, this 21st Seeds of Gold Farm Clinic has focused on two very important commodities, that is maize and dairy. So how is this a clinic? In this farm clinic, we have experts who are the scientists from NARO, as they have already been talking to you. You have seen all of them. What are they doing? They are diagnosing the challenges that the public is facing in terms of maize farming and dairy farming. Diagnosing how? By asking you questions, some of which you've already provided them, and they are giving us answers to these questions so that we can improve productivity of maize and dairy. So these Seeds of Gold Farm Clinics helps NARO to promote our technologies to the end users. End users in its broad sense, starting from the farmers, private sector players, the processors, the consumers, and everyone who utilizes our technologies. So we really value this partnership. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Kugonza Jane, and for your remarks. Well, I think we've come to the end of this session of the farm clinics. Like I said, this is our final farm clinics of the three. Remember where we started in Mukono, we went to Kawanda, and now here we've been. We had 3 virtual farm clinics this year. I just want to thank the viewers out there that have been watching, the people that have sent in the questions, and I also want to remind you that the farmers, please go to Stanbic Bank. It is the #1 bank that you would want, you as a farmer. If you want that interest loan at 16%, the SCF loan at 10%, and mind you, they have over 75 branches all over the country. And again, just walk into any of the NSSF branches, ask about the voluntary benefit, and indeed, they will tell you more about it. And from us in the group, I want to thank our NTV team, the guys you don't see behind the cameras. I want to thank the KFM team, Daily Monitor team, Dembe FM, the East African. As a group, we had to work together to make sure that you get this farm clinic live from the comfort of your home. Next year, hopefully without COVID, we shall go back to our normal, how we used to have the farm clinics. We shall invite you to do institutes, and then you have a clear interface, a one-on-one interface with some of these people. But for those that would want to get in touch with these trainers, please just walk into any of the narrow institutes. You heard from Jane, these institutes are open. Don't hesitate to come. But please don't come in big numbers because we are in the COVID time. Come in small numbers. Until next year, see you and thank you.